Okay, fucking bullshit and gay shit. Okay. Get rid of that. Select stream. Refresh. There. Okay. Now chat. Live chat. Good.
We welcome everyone to...
Ooh, loud. That was loud.
Committee will come to order without objection. The chair is authorized to declare a recess at any time. We welcome everyone to today's hearing on oversight of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. This is the first occasion for the committee to get back together since the tragic death of Charlie Kirk. Charlie was a good man, a happy warrior who fought for...
Yep, gotta make sure you suck
Charlie's
Charlie's
dick
I think
one
more time before it gets too cold.
And certainly was a strong proponent of defending the First Amendment, something this committee cares deeply about. I said this over the weekend. I think Charlie lived that scripture verse, 2 Timothy 4:7, fight the good fight, finish the course, keep the faith. Charlie certainly lived that, and he did it with a smile on his face. And so the tragic killing happened a week ago while we were in markup here in the committee.
God, that's close.
And I know everyone, I know that our witness was a friend of Charlie's, and I know many people in the dais were as well. So I know we're all praying for family. And I would extend a moment to the ranking member if you wanted to say something.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for saying that. The whole country reacted with horror and shock to the brutal assassination of Charlie Kirk in cold blood. And there is never any warrant for political violence in America. And just as we all recoiled together at the shocking assassination of...
He's a U.S. representative from Maryland. He's a Democrat from Maryland.
Melissa Hortman and others who died in that Minnesota attack, we all stand together categorically against political violence in America and determined to end these cycles of political violence that have traumatized the country.
Well said. Chair now recognizes the gentleman from Kansas, Mr. Schmidt, to lead us all in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Cringe, performative,
Mr. Mayor,
who
we will
cares?
begin with opening statements. 5 weeks ago, because of the work of Director Patel,
Okay, so right now, I think Kash Patel is here to talk about the Russiagate stuff. I think at least that's what they're going to talk about first. I think
former chair of the House Intelligence Committee and current United States senator leaked classified information. We learned this because a whistleblower came forward. Whistleblower with 23 years experience in the intelligence community, a Democrat staffer on the committee, said this: they were pressured to leak classified information, which sort of raises the obvious question. Why would the head of the Intelligence Committee, the chair of that committee, who's supposed to be guarding our secrets, why would he be encouraging the leaking of classified information? Whistleblower told us that answer as well. The leaked information was supposed to be used, the leaked information, false information, was going to be used to indict President Trump.
So something that was going to happen never happened. Okay. Big issue.
Now, the former chairman wasn't the only person leaking information.
Tell us more.
Jim Comey was also sharing things he wasn't supposed to share. Again, don't take my word for it. The Inspector General told us this. In his report, he said, quote, James Comey violated FBI policy by disclosing classified information. And what was Comey's motive? Same as the senator from California: to sabotage and undermine President Trump's first term. And we know that Mr. Comey's not been shy about what his objective was. In fact, 4 months ago, he told us. Remember this? 86-47. Jim Comey told us just 4 months ago. Now, how'd they do it? How did the former chair of the Intel community...
Jim Comey, the same exact Republican director of the FBI that fucked over Hillary's campaign in 2016? Okay.
Former FBI director and others in our government attempt to undermine President Trump's first term. 7 weeks ago, because of the good work of the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, we learned from another whistleblower, a second whistleblower, that in the closing days of the Obama administration, the intelligence community assessment was changed. On December 5th,
almost like you might, almost as if things might change with the more data you get. It's kind of fucking crazy.
2016, they had one assessment. That assessment said,
and the worst part is this is going to be so boring until it gets good, so.
Russia didn't try.
Sorry, but I do want to watch the whole thing.
Did not impact the election vote count. There was a meeting at the White House. A second whistleblower, that in the closing days of the Obama administration, the intelligence community assessment was changed. On December 5th, 2016, they had one assessment. That assessment said Russia did not impact the election vote count. There was a meeting at the White House on December 9th, 2016, where it was decided, no, we're not going to have that. We're going to come up with a new one. And the new one said Russia was trying to influence election and did influence election, which just wasn't accurate. And that new one is published on January 6, 2017. Let's just show you a few things that took place. I want to show you first this email from Admiral Rogers, the head of the NSA.
On both points, my team raised concern. All right, let's actually read what this is instead of the two highlights thing. Let's see what we can read. Specifically, I asked my team if they had sufficient access to the underlying intelligence and sufficient time to review that intelligence. At both points, my team raised concerns. They were clear that, at the staff level, folks have been forward-leaning and trying to ensure that we have an opportunity to review and weigh in, but I'm concerned that, given the expedited nature of this activity, my folks aren't fully comfortable saying that they've had enough time to review all the intelligence to be absolutely confident in their assessment. To be clear, I am not saying that we disagree substantively, but I do want to make sure that when we're asked in the future whether this can be absolutely stood behind the paper. So it wasn't even that they didn't agree with what the paper was saying. If anything, these people are just saying, hey, we don't have enough time. They don't think that takes away anything that was originally in the document, but let's just see what this Jim Jordan, this absolute fucking psychopath, has to say about it.
You can see it was December 22nd. Says to Jim, John, and Jim. Jim Clapper, John Brennan, Jim Comey. And he says...
Actually, hold on. Michael Rogers... email. My team raised concerns. Is this it? Yeah. All right. Let's just read this entire fucking thing. I've just returned from a TDY overseas and have been updated on the current status of our effort to produce a joint product related to Russia's attribution and intent for the DNC DCCC hacks. I know because, remember, Russia did hack into the DNC and the DCCC emails. That is, no one argues that fact. I know that this activity is on a fast track and that folks have been working very hard to put together a product that can be provided to the president. However, I wanted to reach out to you directly to let you know some of the concerns I have with what I am hearing from my folk. All right, nothing wrong with this email so far. That's totally normal. Let's just see what else he has to say about this. Specifically, and this is where the highlights come forward. This paragraph is where the highlights that Jim Jordan's talking about here. Specifically, I asked my team if they had sufficient access to the underlying intelligence and sufficient time to review that intelligence. That's the issue that he was talking about. Whether they had access to the underlying intelligence and enough time. Those are the two things for right now. At both points, my team raised concerns. They were clear that, at a staff level, folks have been forward-leaning in trying to ensure that we have an opportunity to review and weigh in. So no one's making it so these guys can't view anything. Doesn't seem like they're making it any more difficult to view the underlying information and intelligence. But I'm concerned that, given the expedited nature of this activity, my folks aren't fully comfortable saying that they have had enough time to review all of the intelligence to be absolutely confident in their assessment. To be clear, I am not saying that we disagree substantively, but I do want to make sure that when we were asked in the future whether we can absolutely stand behind the paper, that we don't have any reason to hesitate because of the process. So, they're not even saying that there's anything wrong with the assessment. I know that you agree that this is something we need to be 100% comfortable with before we present it to the president. We have one chance to get this right, and it's critical that we do so. If the intent is to create an integrated product that the CIA, FBI, NSA jointly authorize that we can all defend, we need a process that allows us all to be comfortable, and I'm concerned that we are not there yet. In addition, if NSA is intended to be a co-author of this product, I personally expect to see even the most sensitive evidence related to the conclusion. However, if your intent is to create a CIA only or CIA FBI only authored report, then I will stand down on these concerns. So all of this was only because he wanted this guy, Michael Rogers, was going to have his name on it, and he just wanted to be 100% certain that everything in it was 100%. Wasn't saying anything was anything wrong or anything was incorrect in the assessment. He just wasn't sure. He just wanted a better look at it. Now, what Jim Jordan and all them are going to try and say is, no, that is actually proof that everything in it is a lie because of this. Because they didn't lie, the FBI and the CIA were totally cool with it, but the NSA wasn't. So because 1 out of the 3 wish they had more time to review everything, then, okay, I guess in that case, then everything could be thrown out, according to Jim Jordan, who's a fucking scumbag. Cool. All right. We know a little bit more about that. Let's keep going.
I asked my team if they've had sufficient access to the underlying intelligence, sufficient time to review that intelligence. On both points, my team raised concern. Further states, my folks aren't fully comfortable. A few hours later, there's an email back to Admiral Rogers. This one is from Jim Clapper, and it says this: it is essential that we be on the same page and all of us are supportive of the report in the highest tradition of, that's our story and we're sticking to it. We may have to compromise on our normal modalities. This is one project that has to be a team sport. That's our story and we're sticking to it. Compromise on normal modalities, that's a fancy way of saying, that's the government speak for we're going to have to change the rules. In fact, we're not going to follow our own rules. And that's exactly what they did to get the objective they wanted, to undermine President Trump. Now, how did it specifically take place? The whistleblower said that the government officials ignored concerns about discredited information. And what was that discredited information?
Okay, wait, no, it
what was the discredited information that they didn't ignore the concerns about? What did they use, that discredited information? Of course, it was the dossier. The now famous Steele dossier that was paid for by the Clinton campaign when they hired the law firm Perkins Coie, who hired Fusion GPS, who hired the foreigner Christopher Steele, who wrote all this garbage and lies down. That is what was used to change the intelligence community report. And what happens next? What do Jim, John, and Jim do next? They go to Trump Tower on January 6, 2017, to brief then President-elect Trump about the dossier. Again, the Clinton-financed, foreign-authored dossier that the whistleblower knows is garbage and that they know is garbage. And then there's one final step. One final step. Jim Comey leaves that meeting with the president and immediately leaks to the press that they briefed the president on the discredited information. They briefed the president on the dossier and thereby giving it some credibility and creating the basis and the predicate for all they did to the president.
Again, Republicans try not to play victim 100% of the time. Challenge impossible, because even though they say how tough they are and how much they want war, don't forget they're also giant pussies. They're also the biggest victims in the entire world, and they have no principles. Just remember that.
They leaked
Hopefully this gets interesting soon. I'm already getting bored.
They leaked classified information. They used and leaked discredited information, and they didn't follow their own rules, all to sabotage President Trump's first term.
Again, remember, all of this, everything that they're insinuating, and it's all that everything that the Democrats apparently did was just to discredit Trump's first term to make his job a little more difficult. That's all this is about. Remember that. Just remember that when you realize, and it's the biggest sign that Republicans are just such pussies.
For this guy, Kash Patel, but for this guy, we would never have known this information. The good people of this great country would not have known what took place.
Remember what took place. Some people were just a little concerned that certain groups like the NSA didn't have full access to all the information before going to the president. Not that anything substantively about the report was incorrect or that Russia was actually doing this kind of stuff was incorrect. None of that was wrong. But they won't talk about that because that goes against everything they've been trying to peddle about how Russia is a giant hoax, which it's not. Half the people in the Trump administration that got pardoned by Trump for their connections to Russia should still be in jail. And they should probably never come out of jail. Or if they do leave jail, laying down.
Years ago, when they were trying to undermine the guy elected by we the people. And I want to thank Attorney General Bondi. She set up a special strike force, a special team.
Thank you, Pam.
To look into this and see if there's any criminal liability that exists in what took place. Now, in addition to getting the truth to the people, Director Patel is getting the bad guys off the street.
I don't believe you.
He's moved agents out of Washington, got the focus off of politics here in D.C., and is instead
I don't believe anyone's
bad
here.
guys
Fuck
behind
you guys,
bars.
you're lying.
21,000 violent criminals have been taken off the streets, which is a 125% increase from the comparable period in the previous administration. He's rescued four.
Comparable? Wait, hang on.
He's moved agents out of Washington, got the focus off of politics.
No, he hasn't.
Here in D.C., and is instead putting bad guys behind bars. 21,000 violent criminals have been taken off the streets, which is a 125% increase from the comparable period.
Wait, what did he say?
And is instead putting bad guys behind bars. 21,000 violent criminals have been taken off the streets, which is a 125% increase from the comparable period in the previous administration. He's rescued 4,000 kids.
Let's remember, like, in the first 8 months of the Biden administration, was there something else happening in this country that may have slowed down law enforcement's ability to take people off the streets? Maybe it was some kind of, like, thing that wasn't only affecting America, but affecting the entire world at that time. Could that be a possibility? Maybe. Who knows? Don't ask fucking Jim Jordan. Because he's going to lie. All right. Let's see. I was curious, what's this 21,000 violent criminals taken off the streets? Let's just look at this one. Reports about 21,000 violent criminals being removed from the streets appear to be based on an inaccurate interpretation of information related to a June 25 NBC News report about a planned U.S. immigration operation. Interesting. Let's see. Where is this link? Okay, let's see what this actually says. In mid-May, White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller, an actual fucking demon goblin hellspawn, frustrated over what he saw as numbers of arrests and deportations of unauthorized immigrants that were too low, berated and threatened to fire senior immigration and customs enforcement officials if they did not begin detaining 3,000 migrants a day, according to two sources who spoke to attendees. Miller also threatened to fire leaders of field offices posting the bottom 10% of arrests, posting the bottom 10% of arrest numbers monthly, two sources said. Well, that's good, because that's almost like, oh, you know, if they can't find any criminals, they better make some criminals if they don't want to keep their job. I feel like that's a pretty perverse incentive, but that's just me. Weeks later, ICE is launching the Trump administration's largest immigration crackdown. Operation at Large, a nationwide ICE-led plan already underway to ramp up arrests of unauthorized immigrants, includes more than 5,000 personnel from across and 21,000 National Guard troops, according to an operation plan. Wait. All right, maybe AI really fucked this up. Okay. In early 25, NBC reported intended plan Operation at Large. The 21,000 figure, the figure refers to the maximum number of National Guard troops. Wait, so did he just fucking did Jim George just make this fucking number up? Wait, where did Jim George get this information then? Like, wait. Wait, hold on a second. Do they have No, I don't want arrest. I want... Is there like a... detention, removals, and expulsions. Okay. So we've only removed... Wait. 17,157 to people from... expulsions. No data. Smart Link facial matching. What's that? The fuck is this creepy shit? What is it? Facial? What the fuck is this shit? SmartLink facial refers to the use of a smartphone app called by SmartLink by the U.S. To verify the identity of the individual. Okay. During check-in, a user can upload a selfie to the app, which uses fake software to compare the new image to a photograph taken during their enrollment. The biometric process helps to ensure participants adhere. Nice. They're just using this app to fucking arrest people based. Fucking sweet. Okay. So, yeah, Jim Jordan just made that 21,000 number completely up.
He's got 1,300 predators who he's arrested. He's also ended the weaponization of the FBI.
Oh. It's the Republican strategy. It's the classic Republican strategy. If you just say it with enough confidence, it's true. Fucking ridiculous. All right, I'm going to go get a drink real quick. I'll be right back. I'm going to let this play one up.
No more spying on parents at school board meetings. No more pre-dawn raids on pro-life Catholics. No more retaliation against whistleblowers. And he's given us information that Chris Wray didn't. Maybe said better, he's given us information that Chris Wray wouldn't. Director Wray didn't tell us that there were 26 confidential human sources at the Capitol on January 6, 2021, even though he was repeatedly asked about that by members of this committee. Director Wray didn't tell us that there were 17 of those confidential human sources who entered restricted space. 4 went in the Capitol. None of them were arrested. They weren't authorized to do that. They broke the law. None of them were arrested. Lots of American citizens were arrested, but the guys whose whose American tax dollars was used to pay these guys who broke the law, none of them were. One was recommended for charging and was not charged. And remember when Chris Wray told us that the Richmond field office memorandum on pro-life Catholics was just a one-off? Turns out he wasn't being square with the Senate either. Director Wray wasn't square with us. He told us that multiple other offices were involved in targeting the Catholics. We got that information from Director Patel. We learned from Director Patel the FBI actually surveilled a priest, tried to get the priest to divulge information, break the priest-penitent relationship and confidence that exists. And Director Patel is saving taxpayers' money. He's not going to build a new headquarters outside of D.C. He's going to keep the headquarters right here in the capital city. Save Americans money. Save the taxpayers' money. In 8 months, Director Patel has given us the facts. He's ended the weaponization at the FBI. He's taking bad guys off the streets, and he's saving taxpayers' money. But my guess is the Democrats won't focus on all that good news. They'll focus on politics. They'll stick with Comey and Clapper and Brennan and continue to try to undermine President Trump. That I yield to them.
Undermine. Like, what does this word mean? Like, are you trying to tell me that fucking Republicans didn't try to undermine Barack Obama? Hold on. I remember this great quote from fucking Mitch McConnell.
Let's start with the big picture. Over the past week, some have said it was indelicate of me to suggest that our top political priority over the next 2 years should be to deny President Obama a second term. But the fact is, if our primary legislative goals are to repeal and replace the health spending bill, to end the bailouts, cut spending, and shrink the size and scope of government, the only way to do all of those things is to put someone in the White House who won't veto any of these things. We can hope the president will start listening to the electorate after Tuesday's election, but we can't plan on that. And it would be foolish to expect that Republicans will be able to completely reverse the damage Democrats have done as long as a Democrat holds the veto pen.
So are we talking about undermining the effectiveness of the president of the United States? And that's coming from Republicans? It's almost like they have no principles at all.
Ranking member for an opening statement.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and welcome, Director Patel. You and I have not had the opportunity to meet, and alas, you failed to respond to the 8 oversight letters I've sent you over the last 7 months. So we do have a lot of questions piling up for you, but I want to start with a word of praise. The first
That would actually require Kash to do some work. He's not going to fucking do that.
FBI director was J. Edgar Hoover, who steadfastly refused to hire women, African Americans, and other minorities as agents. And although he was a closeted homosexual who lived in domestic partnership for decades with Clyde Tolson, he also participated in anti-gay crusades. He aggressively promoted what we would today call white Christian nationalism, and he would undoubtedly be turning over in his grave to see as one of his successors a first-generation Indian American and a proud Hindu. So I congratulate you on being a breakthrough in this sense and being a beneficiary of the civil rights movement that opened up the FBI and the federal workforce to lots of people who never would have been hired in its first decades. Alas, you share J. Edgar Hoover's dangerous obsession with blind loyalty over professionalism and effective public policy. True. For Hoover, it was blind loyalty to him in keeping his secrets. For you, it's blind loyalty to Donald Trump in keeping his secrets. During your confirmation, it was widely noted on all sides that your primary qualification was your unwavering loyalty to Trump. True. Unlike other directors, you had no work experience at the FBI, but you had made over 1,000 media and political appearances in support of Trump's campaign.
True.
Your Senate confirmation.
He also wrote a really weird book. The Plot Against the King, about Hillary Clinton and Trump being a king and Kash Patel being a fucking Indian wizard. He's running some kind of super secret call center.
Vote was 51 to 49, the closest in history, with your opponents warning you were not qualified and had no interest in actually developing the qualifications for the job. I hoped that they were wrong. Alas, they were not. While most other new FBI directors drew on their experience as FBI agents, you didn't have that. But you did write a picture book trilogy for children ages 5 and up based on your experience clashing with President Trump's political enemies. In your book, you describe your literary alter ego, Kash the Knight, as a wacky, easily bored wizard carrying out King Donald's vengeance by driving his enemies out of the kingdom. In the books, King Donald is besieged by the evil Hillary Queentown, but saved in the end by Kash. Then Kash goes on to catch mules who are stealing the 2020 election for the great King Donald from Sleepy Joe. And then in the third book, Kash takes down the Dragon of the Jalapenos, nicknamed the DOJ. Your supporters had hoped that you would graduate from imagining yourself a romantic fairy tale knight to actually running America's premier federal law enforcement agency. Alas, just as we've learned how dangerous it is to put a science-denying anti-vaxxer in charge of our public health, we've learned how dangerous it is to name as director of the FBI a man who thinks of himself as a fairy tale knight who keeps a fire-breathing dragon named DOJ at home to forcibly drive villains out of the kingdom. When Charlie Kirk was assassinated, while his killer was still on the loose, you decided you didn't need to be at FBI headquarters in Washington to work with your team while the chaotic manhunt unfolded. You spent your evening dining in a swanky Midtown Manhattan restaurant and tweeting out false information that the subject of the shooting was in custody, a statement you had to retract 1 hour later. Your performance was so disturbing that even the MAGA base was alarmed.
No.
Culture war.
Oh, no.
A statement you had to
You
retract
had one job, bro.
1
You had
hour
one
later.
fucking job. Come on.
Your performance was so disturbing that even the MAGA base was alarmed. Culture warrior
Look,
Christopher.
even she knows, bro, you had one fucking job. Is to hold up this giant fucking... What are you doing back there?
Rufo, who just a few months ago sat in your chair as a Republican witness, observed that you performed terribly, and he called for your ouster. The FBI might be able to survive your delusions of grandeur and the explosively...
Be right back one more time. Dude, I lose everything. I always lose everything.
Volatile temper that was on display yesterday in the Senate. But the intractable problem is that you are running the FBI not as a law enforcement agency charged with keeping the American people safe, but as a political enforcement agency working directly for the president's vengeance campaign. 7 months in, it's impossible to overstate the destruction, chaos, and demoralization you've brought to the FBI and its workforce and the resulting danger your actions have caused to our country. You've been systematically purging the FBI of its most experienced and qualified agents, division leaders, and experts in counterterror, counterintelligence, and cybersecurity, precisely the people who have the expertise you lack and which the FBI and the country need. They've been expelled from the ranks of the Bureau simply because they did their duty investigating crimes, including those committed by the mob that attacked the Capitol on January 6, 2021.
Good, call it a mob. You should call them worse. You should call them fucking traitors, goblins, creature like Golem.
And beat the hell out of more than 140 police officers, or simply because you suspected them of being insufficiently loyal to Donald Trump. You illegally sacked Brian Driscoll, the former acting director of the Bureau and a decorated counterterrorism expert who worked at the FBI for nearly 20 years. According to Driscoll, you told him your own job, quote, depended on the removal of agents who worked on the cases against the president, regardless of whether the agents chose to work on those cases.
Kind of weird, almost like when Jim Jordan was like, oh, so happy he's not politicizing the government anymore. Turns out it wasn't true. All right, hold on real quick. I gotta do something else real quick. Sorry. Doo-doo-doo. Where would it be? It would be for this one. Ruger. Which one is this? This one. Let's see.
Or not. You added, quote, the FBI tried to put the president in jail and he hasn't forgotten it. You forced out the leader of the Salt Lake City field office, Driscoll, you told him your own job, quote, depended on the removal of agents who worked on the cases against the president, regardless of whether the agents chose to work on those cases or not. You added, quote, the FBI tried to put the president in jail and he hasn't forgotten it.
Wow, almost like the FBI director is doing the president's bidding. But he wouldn't do that. That'd be fucking crazy, right? Like, just imagine if the FBI director was only there to do and investigate and follow up with only what the president said he should. That'd be fucking crazy.
You forced out the leader of the Salt Lake City field office, Mehtab Saeed, just weeks before Charlie Kirk's assassination, depriving the FBI of an experienced counterterrorism expert described by her colleagues as absolutely the best and legendary. She would have led the FBI's manhunt.
No, shooting themselves in the foot. Who would have thought? Right back 1 second. Sorry. last time, probably. One second.
Had she not been fired. When Trump decided...
Hold on, one second.
The leader of the Salt Lake City field office, Mehtab Saeed, just weeks before Charlie Kirk's assassination, depriving the FBI of an experienced counterterrorism expert described by her colleagues as absolutely the best and legendary. She would have led the FBI's manhunt had she not been fired.
That would have been
When
nice.
Trump decided that rounding up immigrants with no criminal records was more important than preventing crimes like human trafficking of women and girls, drug dealing, terrorism, and fraud, you ordered the 25 largest field offices to divert thousands of agents away from chasing down violent criminals, sex traffickers, fraudsters, and scammers to carry out this immigration crackdown. Director Patel, you treated the men and women at FBI with disrespect and paranoia. You've assembled a roving band of freelancing henchmen within your office and charged them with conducting unauthorized investigations, targeting and harassing career FBI employees. Amazingly, you forced senior leadership to repeatedly take polygraph tests to prove their political loyalty and pushed out leaders who refused these demeaning exercises. And now we're seeing one very clear reason why you want to build a political FBI. The Epstein files. You want an FBI blindly loyal to Trump and to you as his enforcer so you can continue your cover-up of a massive international sex trafficking ring with more than 1,000 victims, betraying all of the survivors of the sexual violence. Before you got in this job, you called for full release of the Epstein files, telling podcaster Benny Johnson that the only reason the list was not released by DOJ and FBI was, quote, because of who's on that list. Upon your confirmation, you promised that, quote, there will be no cover-ups, no missing documents, no stone left unturned, and anyone from the prior or current Bureau who undermines this will be swiftly pursued. This spring, you ordered hundreds of agents to pore over all the Epstein files, but not to look for more clues about the money network or the network of human traffickers. You pulled these agents from their regular counterterrorism or drug trafficking duties to work around the clock, some of them sleeping at their desks, to conduct a frantic search to make sure Donald Trump's name and image were flagged and redacted wherever they appeared, whether an email, a text, a letter, an interview, a photograph, or a video. In May, Attorney General Bondi reportedly told Trump that his name had indeed appeared multiple times throughout the Epstein files. And not long thereafter, in July, you and the Attorney General released a memo claiming that, quote, no further disclosure would be appropriate or warranted. In a few short months, how did you go from being a crusader for accountability and transparency for the Epstein files to being a part of the conspiracy and cover-up? The answer is simple. You said it yourself, because of who's on that list. Donald Trump's relationship with Epstein over the years is well documented. A week ago, the Oversight Committee released Trump's disturbing birthday book, Note to Epstein, written over a drawing of a woman's naked body referring to a, quote, wonderful secret. The Oversight Committee obtained the note from the Epstein estate, not from the FBI, raising questions again of whether the FBI has been withholding documents. While you're unleashing the FBI to cater to Trump's desire to shut down the Epstein inquiry, the first 9 months of the Trump presidency have seen a spate of political violence and domestic terror events. We saw deadly attacks on political figures on both the left and the right. The brutal assassination of Minnesota Democratic House Speaker Melissa Hortman and her husband, and the attempted murder of Democratic State Senator John Hoffman and his wife, who miraculously survived a combined 17 gunshots. We saw an arsonist set Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro's residence on fire. And of course, last week, we saw the horrific, cold-blooded assassination of Charlie Kirk in Utah that has shaken the nation. 1 minute after Charlie Kirk was shot in the neck, A 16-year-old shooter in Evergreen, Colorado, radicalized by white supremacist ideology online, opened fire and critically wounded 2 other students at Evergreen High School. We've seen lethal anti-Semitic violence, including the murder of 2 young Israeli embassy staffers just blocks from the Capitol, and then in the attack on a gathering of Jewish people in support of hostages held in Gaza in Boulder in June. We've seen continued mass shootings at schools, like the domestic terror incident at a Catholic school in Minneapolis last month, which killed 2 children and wounded 18 others. And in August, a man fired more than 500 bullets at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, killing a police officer who was...
Today I'm going to show you guys how to install your Harrington arm. Good. We slide it on, we can thread on the compensator. You can see that it wants to stop right about there. Obviously this is not how you want to position.
I mean, could it be that they're that fucking dirty? There's no fucking way. Bro will not budge.
You're going to want the top.
A Marine veteran and a father. People like Melissa Hortman and Charlie Kirk should be able to participate in politics as elected officials or active citizens without being shot down in cold blood in the United States of America. People should also be able to go to elementary school, to middle school, to high school, to work, to the mall, and to church without being shot down in explosions of gun violence. The important position at the FBI requires a leader who puts public safety and national security and the rule of law first. I'm afraid, Director Patel, you've given us reason to believe you've used the powers of the FBI to serve Donald Trump